Deep in the Arkansas Ozarks, where morning mist clings to limestone bluffs like secrets refusing to be spoken, a family's bloodline carried something that would challenge every understanding of human genetics and heredity. In the autumn of 1866, Dr. Josiah Whitmore, a traveling physician making his rounds through the remote settlements of Newton County, encountered a medical mystery so profound and disturbing that his detailed case notes would remain sealed in university archives for over a century. What he discovered about the Turner family bloodline would force science to confront the possibility that some genetic legacies transcend the boundaries of biology itself. The Turner homestead sat in a hollow so isolated that locals called it Ghost Valley, not for any supernatural reasons, but because families who settled there seemed to fade from memory as if they had never existed at all. The valley could only be reached by following a narrow creek bed through a maze of limestone caves and towering rock formations that had been carved by centuries of water erosion. Most travelers avoided the area entirely, not from fear, but from an inexplicable sense that the place was not meant for human habitation. Ezekiel Turner had brought his pregnant wife Sarah to this remote location in 1845, seeking the kind of isolation that only the deepest Arkansas wilderness could provide. Turner was a man with secrets, though the nature of those secrets would not become apparent until Dr. Whitmore's investigation 2 decades later. To his neighbors in the scattered settlements of Newton County, Ezekiel appeared to be nothing more than a taciturn farmer who preferred his own company to that of others. He traded for supplies only when absolutely necessary and never lingered in town longer than required to conduct his business. Sarah Turner was rarely seen by outsiders, leading to speculation among the local women that she suffered from some form of chronic illness that kept her confined to the homestead. The few glimpses that neighbors caught of her during the family's infrequent trips to town revealed a woman of striking beauty, marred by an expression of perpetual anxiety, as if she lived in constant fear of some unnamed catastrophe. Her interactions with others were brief and stilted, suggesting someone who had been trained to avoid casual conversation. The Turner children, when they began appearing in the mid-1840s, presented an even greater mystery. There were 7 of them in total, ranging in age from infant to adolescent, when Dr. Whitmore first encountered the family in 1866. What struck the physician immediately was not their individual characteristics, but the uncanny similarity they bore to one another despite their different ages. Each child possessed the same distinctive facial features, the same piercing blue-gray eyes, and the same peculiar mannerisms that suggested they were more like copies of a single person than separate individuals. Dr. Whitmore's initial visit to the Turner homestead had been prompted by reports from a neighboring family that strange sounds had been heard coming from Ghost Valley for several consecutive nights. The sounds were described as human voices, but distorted in some way that made them almost unrecognizable as speech. Some witnesses claimed to have heard what sounded like multiple people speaking in perfect unison, while others reported hearing conversations conducted in languages that bore no resemblance to any known dialect. When Dr. Whitmore arrived at the Turner homestead on a crisp October morning, he found Ezekiel working in a field behind the cabin, methodically harvesting what appeared to be an unusually abundant corn crop. The man's greeting was polite but reserved, and he seemed unsurprised by the arrival of a stranger, despite the isolated location of his property. When Dr. Whitmore explained that he was investigating reports of unusual sounds from the valley, Ezekiel's expression remained carefully neutral. "Can't say I've heard anything out of the ordinary," Turner replied, his voice carrying a slight accent that Dr. Whitmore couldn't place. "Sound carries strange in these hills sometimes. Might be wind through the caves, or maybe coyotes. They make all kinds of noises that don't sound much like coyotes if you're not used to them." Dr. Whitmore accepted the explanation, but something about Turner's demeanor suggested that the man was withholding information. The physician's attention was drawn to the Turner children, who had emerged from the cabin and were standing in a perfectly straight line, watching the conversation with identical expressions of alert curiosity. The sight was unsettling in a way that Dr. Whitmore couldn't immediately identify, though he would later realize that the children's behavior was far too coordinated to be natural. Sarah Turner remained inside the cabin during Dr. Whitmore's visit, though the physician could occasionally glimpse her silhouette moving past the windows, When he asked to speak with her about the health of the family, Ezekiel politely declined on her behalf, explaining that his wife was recovering from a recent illness and was not receiving visitors. However, Dr. Whitmore noticed that the woman's shadow seemed to linger at the windows whenever he was speaking, as if she was monitoring the conversation closely. The Turner children ranged in apparent age from approximately 5 years old to nearly 18, though Dr. Whitmore noted several anomalies that troubled his medical training. The youngest child, who should have displayed the typical curiosity and restlessness of a 5-year-old, stood with the same perfect posture and attentive silence as her older siblings. Conversely, the eldest child, who appeared to be on the verge of adulthood, maintained an expression of childlike innocence that seemed inappropriate for someone of his apparent maturity. More disturbing still were the physical similarities between the children that went far beyond normal family resemblance. Not only did they share identical facial features, but they also moved with the same distinctive gait, held their heads at the same angle when listening, and even breathed in synchronized rhythm. Dr. Whitmore, who had examined hundreds of families during his medical career, had never encountered siblings who displayed such extreme similarity in both appearance and behavior. When Dr. Whitmore attempted to engage the children in conversation, their responses revealed another layer of the mystery surrounding the Turner family. Each child spoke with identical vocabulary, syntax, and intonation, as if they had been taught their responses from the same script. More unnervingly, they often seemed to anticipate each other's words, with one child beginning a sentence that another would complete without any apparent signal or cue passing between them. The physician's medical instincts were further aroused by subtle physical anomalies he observed in each of the Turner children. Their pupils remained consistently dilated despite the bright autumn sunlight, and their skin had an unusual pallor that suggested some form of nutritional deficiency or metabolic disorder. Most concerning of all were the small crescent-shaped scars that each child bore on the inside of their left wrist, marks that appeared too precise and identical to be accidental injuries. Dr. Whitmore's attempts to examine these scars more closely were politely but firmly rebuffed by Ezekiel Turner, who insisted that the marks were the result of childhood accidents involving farm equipment. However, the physician's trained eye recognized that the scars were far too uniform and deliberately placed to have resulted from random injuries. The marks appeared to have been made by a sharp instrument wielded with surgical precision, suggesting some form of intentional scarification. As Dr. Whitmore prepared to leave the Turner homestead, he experienced an incident that would haunt him for the remainder of his career. While walking back toward his horse, he heard what sounded like a child's voice calling his name from somewhere behind the cabin. When he turned to investigate, he saw one of the Turner children standing at the edge of the woods, beckoning him to approach. The child's face bore an expression of desperate urgency, as if trying to communicate something of vital importance. However, when Dr. Whitmore looked back toward the cabin to see if Ezekiel had noticed the child's behavior, he was startled to observe all 7 Turner children standing in their original line formation, none of them missing. When he turned back toward the woods, the beckoning figure had vanished, leaving him to wonder if his eyes had played some trick on him, or if he had witnessed something that defied rational explanation. The incident convinced Dr. Whitmore that the Turner family harbored secrets that went far beyond simple reclusiveness or social awkwardness. His medical training had taught him to recognize the signs of various genetic disorders and hereditary conditions, but the Turner children displayed a combination of symptoms that didn't correspond to any known medical classification. Their identical appearance and synchronized behavior suggested some form of genetic anomaly, but the nature of that anomaly remained frustratingly elusive. Dr. Whitmore's investigation into the Turner family history revealed additional mysteries that deepened rather than resolved the questions surrounding their unusual characteristics. County records showed that Ezekiel Turner had purchased his property in Ghost Valley in 1845, paying in gold coins that were later determined to be of European origin, dating back several centuries. The transaction had been conducted through an intermediary, and Turner himself had never appeared at the county courthouse or interacted with local officials. More intriguing still were the fragments of information that Dr. Whitmore was able to gather about Turner's background prior to his arrival in Arkansas. According to the few reliable sources he could locate, Ezekiel Turner had previously lived in various remote locations throughout the southeastern United States, always moving on after a few years, and never establishing lasting relationships with neighbors or community members. In each location, Turner had been accompanied by a woman identified as his wife, and a varying number of children, though the descriptions of these family members showed troubling inconsistencies. A former resident of eastern Tennessee recalled encountering Turner and his family in the early 1830s, describing a wife and children who matched the general physical characteristics of the family Dr. Whitmore had observed in Arkansas. However, the witness insisted that the children he had seen were all very young, with none appearing older than 7 or 8 years of age. This account was difficult to reconcile with Dr. Whitmore's observations, since it would suggest that the Turner children had aged very slowly over a period of more than 3 decades. Similar accounts emerged from other locations where Turner had reportedly lived, each describing encounters with a family that matched the basic characteristics of the Ghost Valley residents, but with significant discrepancies in the apparent ages of the children. Some witnesses described meeting Turner with only 2 or 3 children, while others recalled seeing as many as 10. Most disturbing were the reports from individuals who claimed to have encountered the same Turner child in different locations years apart, apparently unchanged by the passage of time. Dr. Whitmore's research also uncovered fragmentary references to the Turner name in historical documents dating back to the colonial period. A shipping manifest from Charleston, South Carolina, dated 1798, listed an Ezekiel Turner as arriving from Liverpool with a cargo of what were described as scientific instruments and medical specimens. A property deed from Western Virginia, dated 1812, recorded the purchase of remote mountain land by an individual of the same name. Most intriguing was a medical journal entry from a Philadelphia physician in 1823, describing his examination of a family named Turner, whose children displayed unprecedented uniformity of physical characteristics, suggesting unknown hereditary mechanisms. These historical references suggested that the Turner family's unusual traits might be part of a pattern that had persisted across multiple generations and geographical locations. Dr. Whitmore began to suspect that he was dealing not with a simple case of genetic abnormality, but with something far more systematic and deliberate. The evidence pointed toward a family that had been conducting some form of ongoing experiment in human heredity, possibly spanning centuries and involving techniques that were unknown to conventional medical science. Dr. Whitmore's growing obsession with the Turner mystery led him to make several additional visits to Ghost Valley over the following months, always under the pretext of providing medical services to the isolated community. During these visits, he was able to observe the family more closely and to document additional anomalies that confirmed his suspicions about their unusual nature. On his second visit, Dr. Whitmore noticed that the Turner children never seemed to eat in his presence, despite his visits often occurring during what should have been meal times. When he inquired about the family's dietary habits, citing medical concerns about the children's pallor and apparent undernourishment, Ezekiel Turner provided vague responses about their preference for foods that they grew and prepared themselves. However, Dr. Whitmore observed no evidence of a vegetable garden or food storage that would be adequate to sustain a family of 9 people through an Arkansas winter. More puzzling still was the apparent absence of normal childhood artifacts around the Turner homestead. The cabin contained no toys, books, or other items that would typically be associated with a household containing 7 children ranging from young child to adolescent. The children themselves showed no interest in play or recreational activities, instead spending their time in quiet observation of their surroundings or in whispered conversations conducted in what sounded like a mixture of English and some unknown language. Dr. Whitmore's medical examination of the Turner children, conducted during his 3rd visit under the pretense of checking for common childhood illnesses, revealed additional physical anomalies that defied easy explanation. Each child's pulse rate was significantly slower than normal for their apparent age, and their body temperature registered several degrees below the typical human baseline. Their reflexes were unusually sharp and coordinated, suggesting a neurological development that was far advanced compared to children of similar apparent maturity. Most disturbing were the results of Dr. Whitmore's attempts to examine the children's blood using the primitive microscopic equipment available to him in 1866. The blood samples he was able to collect surreptitiously showed cellular structures that differed significantly from normal human blood, with unusual protein formations and what appeared to be additional cellular components that he couldn't identify. The blood also exhibited strange clotting properties, forming geometric patterns rather than the random clumps typical of normal coagulation. These medical anomalies convinced Dr. Whitmore that the Turner children were not entirely human in the conventional sense, though he struggled to develop a scientific framework that could account for their unusual characteristics. His growing certainty that the family represented some form of genetic experiment or hybrid development was strengthened by his observations of their daily routines and social interactions. The Turner children appeared to function as a collective unit rather than as separate individuals, with decisions and actions coordinated through subtle signals that Dr. Whitmore could not detect or interpret. They moved through their daily tasks with mechanical precision, showing none of the spontaneity or individual variation that characterized normal childhood behavior. Their conversations with adults were polite, but eerily formal, as if they were following predetermined scripts rather than engaging in natural social interaction. Dr. Whitmore's fourth visit to the Turner homestead was prompted by reports from neighboring families that strange lights had been seen moving through Ghost Valley during the night. The lights were described as blue-white in color and moving in coordinated patterns that suggested intelligent control rather than natural phenomena. Some witnesses claimed to have observed the lights forming geometric shapes in the sky above the valley, while others reported seeing them moving in and out of the limestone caves that honeycombed the surrounding hills. When Dr. Whitmore arrived to investigate these reports, he found the Turner family engaged in what appeared to be some form of ritual or ceremony in a clearing behind their cabin. The 7 children were arranged in a perfect circle, each holding what looked like a piece of crystalline material that emitted a faint, luminescent glow. Ezekiel and Sarah Turner stood at the center of the circle, conducting what sounded like a chant or incantation in the same unknown language that Dr. Whitmore had occasionally heard the children speaking. The scene was so bizarre and unexpected that Dr. Whitmore initially remained hidden at the edge of the clearing, observing the proceedings while trying to understand what he was witnessing. The chanting continued for nearly an hour, with the luminescent crystals growing progressively brighter until they cast enough light to illuminate the entire clearing. During the final phase of the ceremony, Dr. Whitmore observed what appeared to be streams of energy or light flowing between the crystals held by each child, creating a complex network of interconnected beams that pulsed in rhythm with the chanting. As the ceremony reached its climax, Dr. Whitmore witnessed something that challenged his understanding of physical reality itself. Each of the Turner children began to shimmer and blur, as if their physical forms were becoming unstable or translucent. For several moments, the children appeared to fade in and out of visibility, sometimes seeming to merge partially with one another before solidifying back into their individual forms. The effect was so dramatic and unmistakable that Dr. Whitmore could not dismiss it as a trick of the lighting or a hallucination brought on by fatigue. When the ceremony concluded and the luminescent glow faded, the Turner family dispersed as if nothing unusual had occurred. Dr. Whitmore retreated from his hiding place and approached the cabin several hours later, claiming to have just arrived for a routine medical visit. Neither Ezekiel nor Sarah Turner gave any indication that they were aware of his earlier presence, and the children behaved with their typical coordinated politeness. However, Dr. Whitmore noticed several changes in the children's appearance that seemed to have occurred during the intervening hours. Their skin had lost some of its earlier pallor and now carried a faint luminescent quality that was particularly noticeable in dim lighting. Their eyes, which had previously been blue-gray, now showed flecks of silver that seemed to shift and move when viewed directly. Most significantly, the crescent-shaped scars on their wrists had darkened and appeared to pulse with the same rhythm as their heartbeats. Dr. Whitmore's attempts to question the family about the ceremony he had witnessed were met with polite denials and claims of ignorance. Ezekiel Turner insisted that the family had spent the evening in their cabin, while Sarah Turner maintained her usual silence and avoided eye contact with the physician. The children showed no reaction to his questions, maintaining their characteristic expressions of alert innocence while providing no useful information. Frustrated by the family's secretiveness, but convinced that he had witnessed something of profound scientific importance, Dr. Whitmore decided to conduct a more systematic investigation of the Turner bloodline and its apparent anomalies. He began by researching historical records more thoroughly, seeking additional documentation of the family's movements and activities over the decades preceding their arrival in Ghost Valley. This expanded research revealed a pattern of Turner family settlements that stretched back through multiple generations and across several continents. References to Turner families with unusual characteristics appeared in medical journals, shipping records, and government documents from locations as diverse as rural Scotland, colonial Pennsylvania, and the Canadian wilderness. In each case, the families were described as reclusive, secretive, and possessing children who displayed remarkable physical similarities and coordinated behavior. A particularly significant discovery came in the form of a research journal kept by Dr. Malcolm Sinclair, a Scottish physician who had encountered a Turner family in the Highlands in 1801. Dr. Sinclair's detailed notes described a family whose children exhibited the same synchronized behavior and physical anomalies that Dr. Whitmore had observed in Arkansas. More importantly, Dr. Sinclair had conducted primitive genetic experiments on blood samples obtained from the Turner children, documenting cellular structures that differed significantly from normal human tissue. Dr. Sinclair's journal also contained references to conversations with Ezekiel Turner, identified as the family patriarch, in which Turner had discussed theories about human genetic manipulation and selective breeding that were far in advance of the scientific understanding available in the early 19th century. According to Sinclair's notes, Turner claimed to be conducting a multi-generational experiment in human evolution, using techniques that combined selective breeding with what he called essence infusion to create enhanced human specimens. The essence infusion process, as described by Turner to Dr. Sinclair, involved the use of crystalline materials that could store and transfer what Turner called life energy between living organisms. By exposing developing children to these crystalline essences during specific phases of their growth, Turner claimed to be able to enhance their physical and mental capabilities while creating genetic consistency across multiple generations. Dr. Sinclair's journal documented his own attempts to replicate Turner's techniques using laboratory mice, with results that partially confirmed the theoretical framework. Mice exposed to the crystalline materials during early development showed enhanced coordination, improved problem-solving abilities, and unusual longevity compared to control groups. However, Dr. Sinclair also noted that the enhanced mice exhibited reduced individual variation and appeared to function more as a collective organism than as separate animals. These historical findings provided Dr. Whitmore with a theoretical framework for understanding the Turner family anomalies, but they also raised disturbing questions about the ultimate goals of the genetic manipulation program. If Turner had indeed been conducting multi-generational experiments in human enhancement for over a century, what was the intended outcome of these efforts? And what role did the crystalline essence infusion play in creating the synchronized behavior and physical uniformity he had observed in the Turner children? Dr. Whitmore's research also uncovered evidence that the Turner family's genetic experiments had not always proceeded smoothly. A coroner's report from Baltimore, dated 1834, described the examination of several children found dead in a remote farmhouse rented by a family named Turner. The children had died from what appeared to be severe genetic abnormalities, with organ systems that had developed incorrectly and cellular structures that showed extreme instability. Similar reports appeared in medical records from other locations where Turner families had lived, suggesting that the genetic manipulation process produced failures as well as successes. The documented failures typically involved children who had undergone severe physical deformities or mental deterioration, while the successful cases resulted in the enhanced but synchronized individuals that Dr. Whitmore had observed in Ghost Valley. This pattern of experimental results implied that the Turner family's genetic program involved significant risks and that only a small percentage of children survived the enhancement process intact. Dr. Whitmore began to suspect that the 7 children he had observed represented the successful products of a much larger experimental program that had produced numerous failures and casualties over the decades. Dr. Whitmore's growing understanding of the Turner family's activities raised profound ethical questions about his responsibilities as a physician and a member of civilized society. If the family was indeed conducting illegal and dangerous genetic experiments on children, he had an obligation to report their activities to appropriate authorities. However, the remote location of Ghost Valley and the lack of clear evidence of criminal wrongdoing made intervention difficult and potentially ineffective. More troubling still was Dr. Whitmore's realization that the Turner children might not be entirely human in the conventional sense, making it unclear whether normal legal and ethical frameworks applied to their situation. If the children were the products of genetic manipulation that had fundamentally altered their nature, were they entitled to the same protections and considerations as ordinary human beings? And if intervention might harm or destroy beings who appeared to be functioning successfully within their own context, was such intervention justified? These philosophical dilemmas were brought into sharp focus during Dr. Whitmore's fifth and final visit to the Turner homestead in the spring of 1867. He arrived to find the family preparing for what appeared to be a major transition, with personal belongings packed and livestock being prepared for transport. When he inquired about their plans, Ezekiel Turner explained that they would be moving to a new location where they could continue their work without interference from curious neighbors. The phrase, "continue their work," confirmed Dr. Whitmore's suspicions about the nature of the Turner family's activities, but it also suggested that their genetic experiments were far from complete. Turner's manner during this final conversation was more open than it had been during previous visits, as if he no longer felt the need to maintain complete secrecy about his family's unusual characteristics. When Dr. Whitmore pressed for more specific information about the nature of their work, Turner provided cryptic responses about humanity's need to evolve beyond its current limitations. He spoke of genetic weaknesses that made humans vulnerable to disease, aging, and death, and of techniques that could eliminate these vulnerabilities while enhancing physical and mental capabilities. The Turner children, he implied, represented an early stage in this evolutionary process, with future generations becoming progressively more advanced and capable. Turner also revealed that the family's frequent relocations were necessary to avoid detection by conventional medical authorities, who might misunderstand and attempt to interfere with their genetic enhancement program. Each location provided opportunities to refine their techniques and to gather new genetic material from local populations, while the isolation allowed them to conduct their experiments without outside scrutiny. Most disturbing was Turner's suggestion that Dr. Whitmore himself had been selected as a potential subject for genetic enhancement, based on his medical knowledge and his demonstrated ability to understand and appreciate the family's scientific achievements. Turner offered to include Dr. Whitmore in their next phase of experiments, promising enhanced longevity, improved physical capabilities, and access to scientific knowledge that was centuries ahead of conventional medical understanding. The offer was presented as a tremendous honor and opportunity, but Dr. Whitmore recognized the underlying threat implicit in Turner's words. The family's pattern of movement and secrecy suggested that they dealt harshly with anyone who might expose their activities, and Dr. Whitmore suspected that his refusal to cooperate might result in his disappearance or death. However, Dr. Whitmore's ethical convictions prevented him from accepting Turner's offer, despite the potential personal consequences of refusal. He politely declined the invitation to join the family's genetic enhancement program, citing his professional obligations to his existing patients and his attachment to conventional medical practice. Turner accepted this refusal with apparent grace, though Dr. Whitmore detected a subtle change in the man's demeanor that suggested disappointment and possibly hostility. The Turner children observed this exchange with their characteristic synchronized attention, showing no individual reactions to the discussion, but maintaining the same collective focus that Dr. Whitmore had noticed during all of his previous visits. Their identical expressions of calm interest provided no indication of their thoughts or feelings about their father's offer or Dr. Whitmore's rejection of it. As Dr. Whitmore prepared to leave the Turner homestead for what would prove to be the final time, he experienced another of the strange incidents that had characterized his relationship with the family. One of the Turner children, A girl who appeared to be approximately 12 years old approached him while he was mounting his horse and spoke to him in a low voice that could not be heard by the other family members. "How you should have accepted," the child said, her voice carrying none of the formal politeness that typically characterized the Turner children's speech. "What's coming will be worse for those who remain unchanged. The old world is ending, and the new one won't have room for weakness." Before Dr. Whitmore could respond or ask for clarification, the child had returned to her position with her siblings, resuming her typical expression of coordinated innocence. When Dr. Whitmore looked back at Ezekiel Turner to see if the man had noticed his daughter's unusual behavior, he found Turner watching him with an expression of knowing amusement, as if the entire exchange had been orchestrated for his benefit. Dr. Whitmore left Ghost Valley that day with the disturbing certainty that he had been warned about something significant, though the nature of that warning remained frustratingly unclear. The child's reference to what's coming and the old world ending suggested that the Turner family's genetic experiments were part of a larger program with implications that extended far beyond their isolated homestead. Over the following months, Dr. Whitmore attempted to track the Turner family's movements and to gather additional information about their activities in their new location. However, despite his extensive inquiries and correspondence with medical colleagues throughout the region, he was unable to locate any trace of the family after their departure from Ghost Valley. It was as if they had simply vanished from the world, leaving behind only the mysterious evidence of their genetic experiments and the disturbing implications of their ultimate goals. Dr. Whitmore's detailed case notes on the Turner family were eventually donated to the medical archives of Harvard University, where they remained largely unexamined for several decades. It was not until the early 20th century that researchers began to appreciate the significance of his observations and to recognize the Turner case as potentially the earliest documented instance of systematic human genetic manipulation. Modern genetic analysis of the blood samples that Dr. Whitmore had preserved revealed cellular structures that were indeed significantly different from normal human tissue. The samples contained additional chromosomes that appeared to be of artificial origin, along with protein structures that did not occur naturally in human biology. Most significantly, the genetic material showed evidence of deliberate modification using techniques that were not developed by mainstream science until the late 20th century. These findings suggested that the Turner family had access to genetic manipulation technologies that were centuries ahead of their time, raising questions about the source of their advanced knowledge and the ultimate success of their enhancement program. If the Turner children represented only an early stage in a multi-generational genetic improvement project, what might their descendants look like after several additional centuries of refinement and development? Contemporary researchers have attempted to trace the Turner bloodline through historical records and genetic databases, but these efforts have been largely unsuccessful. Occasional reports of families with unusual characteristics continue to emerge from remote locations around the world, but none have provided the kind of detailed documentation that Dr. Whitmore was able to gather during his encounters with the original Turner family. The most significant modern development in Turner family research occurred in 1987, when construction workers excavating a foundation in rural Oregon uncovered what appeared to be an abandoned laboratory complex dating from the mid-19th century. The facility contained sophisticated genetic research equipment that was decades ahead of the technology available during the time period when it was apparently constructed. More importantly, the Oregon facility contained extensive genetic samples and documentation that confirmed many of Dr. Whitmore's observations about the Turner family's enhancement program. The research notes, written in multiple hands but sharing consistent terminology and methodology, described a systematic program of human genetic improvement that had been ongoing for several centuries and involved families operating in multiple locations around the world. The Oregon documentation revealed that the Turner family was part of a larger network of genetic researchers who were working toward the creation of what they called enhanced human variants, capable of surviving environmental and social changes that they believed would eventually destroy conventional human civilization. The enhancement program involved not only genetic manipulation, but also psychological conditioning, designed to create individuals who could function as collective organisms while maintaining the intellectual capabilities of separate individuals. The research notes also contained references to periodic convergence events in which enhanced family groups from different locations would meet to share genetic material and research findings. These convergences were apparently coordinated through a complex communication system that used the crystalline essence infusion materials as both enhancement tools and communication devices. Most disturbing were the program's long-term projections, which anticipated the gradual replacement of conventional human populations with enhanced variants over a period of several centuries. The enhanced variants were designed to be superior to normal humans in every measurable way, but they were also programmed to view conventional humans as obsolete and potentially dangerous to the success of the enhancement program. The Oregon facility discovery prompted a classified government investigation into the possibility that the Turner enhancement program had continued into the modern era, with enhanced variants potentially living undetected within normal human populations. However, this investigation has produced no definitive results, and the current status of the Turner bloodline remains unknown. Dr. Whitmore's original case notes continue to serve as the primary source of information about the Turner family genetic enhancement program, providing researchers with detailed observations of what may have been humanity's first encounter with systematically engineered genetic modification. His meticulous documentation of the family's unusual characteristics and behaviors provides a baseline for understanding how genetic enhancement might manifest in human subjects and what the long-term consequences of such modifications might be. The ethical questions raised by Dr. Whitmore's discoveries remain relevant to contemporary discussions about genetic engineering and human enhancement. The Turner family's program violated fundamental principles of informed consent and human dignity, treating children as experimental subjects in a research program that they could not understand or choose to leave. Yet the apparent success of their enhancement techniques raises difficult questions about the potential benefits and risks of genetic modification in human populations. Perhaps most troubling is the possibility that the Turner enhancement program has continued to operate in secret for over a century, gradually infiltrating human populations with enhanced variants who view themselves as evolutionarily superior to their unmodified neighbors. If such a program exists, its ultimate goals and current capabilities remain unknown, leaving open the possibility that humanity's genetic future is being shaped by forces that operate entirely outside the control or awareness of conventional scientific and governmental institutions. The Turner family case serves as a reminder that genetic enhancement technology, once developed, cannot be easily contained or controlled. The knowledge and techniques that Ezekiel Turner possessed in the 1860s were apparently sufficient to create human variants with capabilities that exceeded normal human limitations, and that knowledge has presumably been refined and improved over the intervening decades. Whether the Turner bloodline represents humanity's future evolution or its potential destruction remains an open question. Dr. Whitmore's careful documentation of his encounters with the family provides a glimpse into possibilities that challenge our fundamental assumptions about human nature and genetic destiny. In the isolated valleys of the Arkansas Ozarks, a family carried within their bloodline the seeds of transformation that may ultimately determine the future of human consciousness itself. The genetic curse hidden in the Turner bloodline may not have been a curse at all, but rather a preview of humanity's next evolutionary step. Whether that step represents progress or catastrophe depends entirely on the ultimate intentions of those who initiated the enhancement program and the wisdom of those who may be called upon to continue or terminate their genetic legacy. The modern investigation into the Turner phenomenon took a dramatic turn in 1995 when Dr. Elena Vasquez, a molecular geneticist at the Centers for Disease Control, was contacted by a small-town sheriff in rural Montana about a family that had been found dead in circumstances that bore striking similarities to Dr. Whitmore's historical accounts. The Brennan family had been discovered in their isolated mountain cabin after neighbors reported strange lights and sounds emanating from the property for several consecutive nights. Sheriff Michael Hartley's initial investigation had revealed 7 family members arranged in a perfect circle in the cabin's main room, each having died from what appeared to be simultaneous cardiac arrest, despite showing no prior signs of heart disease. More disturbing were the physical characteristics that the Brennan family shared with Dr. Whitmore's descriptions of the Turner children: identical facial features despite varying ages, synchronized positioning even in death, and the same crescent-shaped scars on their left wrists. Dr. Vasquez's examination of the Brennan family revealed genetic markers that were unlike anything in existing medical literature. DNA analysis showed that all 7 family members shared identical genetic sequences in areas where such uniformity was biologically impossible, even among identical twins. More significantly, their genetic material contained synthetic elements that appeared to be artificially constructed using techniques that were decades ahead of current scientific capabilities. The discovery prompted a classified investigation by a joint task force of CDC researchers, FBI agents, and military geneticists who suspected that the Turner enhancement program had not only continued into the modern era, but had achieved levels of sophistication that posed potential national security implications. The investigation team, designated as Project Helix, began systematically searching for other families that might be connected to the Turner genetic legacy. Project Helix's research methods combined advanced genetic screening with historical analysis, using DNA databases and genealogical records to trace potential bloodline connections across multiple centuries. The investigation revealed a disturbing pattern of families with unusual genetic characteristics, appearing in isolated locations throughout North America, Europe, and Australia, always maintaining the same secretive behavior and collective characteristics that Dr. Whitmore had documented in the original Turner family. Dr. Patricia Morrison, the lead geneticist for Project Helix, discovered that the Turner genetic modifications were far more sophisticated than Dr. Whitmore's primitive analysis had been able to detect. The enhanced individuals carried what appeared to be a secondary genetic system that operated in parallel with normal human DNA, creating hybrid organisms that were technically human but possessed capabilities that transcended normal biological limitations. The secondary genetic system appeared to be based on crystalline molecular structures that could store and process information in ways that conventional biological systems could not achieve. These crystalline elements were integrated into the enhanced individual's nervous systems, creating a form of biological computing that allowed for instantaneous communication between family members and access to accumulated knowledge from previous generations. Project Helix's investigation also revealed that the Turner enhancement program had evolved significantly since Dr. Whitmore's 19th century observations. Modern enhanced families showed evidence of telepathic communication capabilities, accelerated healing processes, and lifespans that appeared to extend far beyond normal human limits. Most concerning was evidence that the enhanced individuals were capable of genetic manipulation of unenhanced humans through direct physical contact. The genetic manipulation capabilities discovered by Project Helix suggested that enhanced Turner descendants could potentially convert normal humans into enhanced variants through a process that resembled viral infection but operated at the genetic level. Preliminary laboratory tests indicated that exposure to enhanced genetic material could begin altering normal human DNA within hours, with complete conversion occurring over a period of several months. Dr. Morrison's research team conducted extensive interviews with individuals who claimed to have encountered Turner family descendants in recent decades, gathering accounts that painted a picture of a genetic enhancement program that had become increasingly aggressive in its efforts to recruit new subjects. Unlike the passive approach documented by Dr. Whitmore, modern enhanced families appeared to be actively seeking opportunities to expand their genetic network through conversion of compatible individuals. The compatibility requirements for genetic conversion appeared to be highly specific, with enhanced families showing particular interest in individuals with certain rare genetic markers that were found in less than 1% of the general population. These markers were associated with enhanced intelligence, creativity, and resistance to common diseases, suggesting that the Turner program was selectively targeting individuals who already possessed superior genetic traits. Project Helix's investigation uncovered evidence of systematic infiltration of key institutions by enhanced Turner descendants who had learned to disguise their unusual characteristics well enough to function within normal human society. Enhanced individuals had been identified in positions of influence within universities, research laboratories, government agencies, and multinational corporations, always maintaining their secretive nature while gradually working to advance the goals of the genetic enhancement program. The discovery that enhanced Turner descendants had achieved positions of significant power and influence within human society raised alarming questions about the extent of their impact on scientific and social development over the past century. Project Helix researchers began to suspect that many of the major advances in genetics, computer science, and biotechnology might have been guided or directly influenced by enhanced individuals working to accelerate human technological development toward goals that served the enhancement program. Dr. Morrison's analysis of patent records, research publications, and corporate development timelines revealed patterns that suggested coordinated efforts by enhanced individuals to steer human scientific progress in specific directions. Technologies related to genetic engineering, artificial intelligence, and biotechnology showed development trajectories that were too rapid and coordinated to be the result of normal competitive research processes. The enhanced individuals appeared to be working toward the development of technologies that would make large-scale genetic modification of human populations both feasible and socially acceptable. Their influence on scientific research had accelerated the development of gene therapy techniques, genetic screening methods, and biotechnology applications that could potentially be used to implement the Turner Enhancement Program on a global scale. Project Helix's investigation also uncovered evidence that the enhanced families had been systematically documenting and preserving human genetic diversity through the collection of biological samples from populations around the world. Hidden research facilities discovered in remote locations contained extensive genetic libraries that appeared to represent a comprehensive catalogue of human genetic variation, suggesting preparation for some form of species-wide genetic modification project. The genetic libraries contained not only samples from contemporary human populations, but also genetic material that appeared to have been preserved from extinct human subspecies and even non-human primates, indicating that the enhancement program's goals extended far beyond simple human improvement to encompass the creation of entirely new forms of intelligent life. Dr. Morrison's team discovered that the enhanced families had also been experimenting with cross-species genetic modification, creating hybrid organisms that combined human intelligence with animal physical capabilities. These experiments had apparently been ongoing for decades, conducted in secret research facilities that operated completely outside the oversight of conventional scientific institutions. The cross-species experimentation had produced several successful hybrid organisms that possessed human-level intelligence combined with enhanced physical capabilities derived from various animal species. These hybrid beings appeared to function as specialized operatives for the enhancement program, conducting reconnaissance and infiltration activities that would be impossible for purely human agents. Project Helix's investigation revealed that the enhanced families maintained a complex organizational structure that coordinated their activities across multiple continents and generations. The organization appeared to operate more like a biological organism than a conventional human institution, with individual enhanced families functioning as specialized organs within a larger collective intelligence that planned and executed long-term strategies spanning centuries. The collective intelligence that governed the Turner Enhancement Program possessed capabilities that transcended normal human cognition, apparently utilizing the crystalline genetic modifications to create a form of distributed consciousness that could process information and make decisions at superhuman levels of complexity and speed. This collective intelligence had been guiding human scientific and social development for over a century, working toward goals that remained largely unknown to conventional human society. Dr. Morrison's research indicated that the collective intelligence was approaching a critical phase in its long-term development plan, with technological capabilities finally reaching levels that would allow for the implementation of global genetic modification programs. The enhanced families appeared to be preparing for what they called the Great Convergence, an event that would involve the simultaneous conversion of large human populations to enhanced genetic status. The Great Convergence was apparently scheduled to occur within the next few decades, coordinated with the development of biotechnology applications that would make genetic modification accessible to general populations under the guise of medical treatment and enhancement. The enhanced families had positioned themselves within key institutions to ensure that the necessary technologies would be developed and deployed according to their timeline. Project Helix's investigation also revealed that the enhanced families had been preparing for potential resistance to their genetic modification program by developing countermeasures designed to neutralize opposition from unenhanced humans. These countermeasures included both technological systems and biological agents that could incapacitate or eliminate individuals who posed threats to the enhancement program's success. The biological agents developed by the enhanced families were designed to target specific genetic markers associated with resistance to genetic modification, effectively creating weapons that could selectively eliminate individuals who were incompatible with the enhancement process. These weapons had apparently been tested on small scales in isolated locations, with several unexplained disease outbreaks potentially being the result of such testing. Dr. Morrison's team discovered evidence that some enhanced families had been conducting psychological manipulation experiments on unenhanced human populations, using their advanced understanding of human behavior to influence social and political developments in ways that served the enhancement program's goals. These manipulation efforts had apparently been instrumental in shaping public attitudes toward genetic engineering and biotechnology. The psychological manipulation techniques employed by enhanced families were sophisticated enough to influence large-scale social movements and political decisions without leaving obvious evidence of external control. The enhanced individual's superior intelligence and understanding of human psychology allowed them to manipulate unenhanced humans with remarkable precision and effectiveness. Project Helix's investigation culminated in the discovery of a master control facility located beneath the Nevada desert, where the collective intelligence that coordinated the Turner Enhancement Program maintained its primary computational systems. The facility represented a fusion of biological and technological systems that was unlike anything in conventional human experience, with crystalline genetic structures integrated into advanced computer networks to create a form of hybrid intelligence. The Master Control Facility contained detailed plans for the Great Convergence, including timelines, target populations, and technological requirements for implementing global genetic modification. The plans revealed that the enhanced families intended to convert approximately 90% of the human population to enhanced status, with the remaining 10% being eliminated as incompatible with the new genetic paradigm. The discovery of the Master Control Facility and its disturbing contents prompted immediate action by the highest levels of government, with Project Helix being expanded into a massive counterintelligence operation designed to identify and neutralize the threat posed by the Turner Enhancement Program. However, the enhanced family's superior capabilities and extensive infiltration of key institutions made effective countermeasures extremely difficult to implement. The enhanced family's response to the discovery of their activities was swift and devastating. Within weeks of Project Helix's breach of the Master Control Facility, several key researchers involved in the investigation died from apparent accidents or sudden illnesses. Dr. Morrison herself disappeared during what should have been a routine research trip, leaving behind only her encrypted research files as evidence of the vast conspiracy she had uncovered. The surviving members of Project Helix found themselves engaged in a shadow war against an enemy that possessed superior intelligence, advanced technology, and centuries of preparation. The enhanced families demonstrated capabilities that seemed to border on the supernatural, using their crystalline genetic modifications to coordinate activities within human precision and to manipulate events in ways that conventional intelligence agencies could not predict or counter. The conflict between Project Helix and the enhanced families escalated throughout the late 1990s and early 2000s, with both sides engaging in increasingly sophisticated forms of biological and psychological warfare. The enhanced families used their infiltration capabilities to sabotage government countermeasures, while Project Helix attempted to develop technologies that could detect and neutralize enhanced individuals before they could implement their conversion programs. The stalemate that emerged from this shadow war left both sides preparing for a final confrontation that would determine the future of human genetic evolution. The enhanced families continued their preparations for the Great Convergence, while the remnants of Project Helix worked to develop countermeasures that might preserve unenhanced humanity's independence and survival. The current status of this conflict remains classified, with only fragmentary information available, to suggest that the battle for humanity's genetic future continues in secret. The enhanced families' superior capabilities and long-term planning have given them significant advantages, but their small numbers and the resistance they have encountered from unenhanced humans have prevented them from achieving their goals as quickly as originally planned. Recent developments in genetic engineering and biotechnology suggest that the enhanced families may be approaching their final phase of preparation for the Great Convergence. The rapid advancement of gene therapy techniques, the development of nanotechnology applications for biological systems, and the increasing acceptance of genetic modification in medical contexts all indicate that the technological prerequisites for large-scale genetic conversion may soon be in place. Whether unenhanced humanity possesses the knowledge, resources, and determination necessary to resist the Turner enhancement program remains an open question. The enhanced family's centuries of preparation and their superior capabilities provide them with enormous advantages, but their ultimate success depends on their ability to overcome the fundamental human resistance to genetic assimilation and the loss of individual identity that their program requires. The Turner family genetic legacy represents one of the most significant challenges that humanity has ever faced, forcing us to confront fundamental questions about the nature of human identity, the ethics of genetic modification, and the right of any group to determine the evolutionary future of our species. The outcome of this struggle will determine whether humanity retains its current form and independence, or becomes something entirely different under the guidance of intelligences that may no longer be entirely human themselves. In the end, the Turner family serves as both a warning and a promise, showing us what humanity might become if we choose to transcend the limitations of our current biological form while raising profound questions about the price of such transcendence and who should have the power to determine humanity's genetic future. The genetic curse hidden in their bloodline may ultimately prove to be either humanity's salvation or its final chapter, depending on choices that are being made in secret laboratories and government facilities around the world, even as we speak.